Hi, everyone. Marcel with the Anvil Wealth Podcast. Today, I'm honored to have Carmelia Ray. She's a celebrity matchmaker, a relationship expert, and the head of growth for One Click. It's an AI-powered content assistant. Today, we're going to discuss the importance of your finances in love and business relationships. And she is the expert, and I'm hoping to learn a ton of that. So welcome, Carmelia. I'm glad to have you here. How are you?
Oh my goodness. I am so great. I'm really glad to connect with you. I've heard incredible things about you. And
Oh, thank you.
I, yeah, and I'm, you know, this is such an important topic, talking about money when it comes to dating, when it comes to your relationships. And
Mhm.
obviously, finances are important to discuss before you go into business with somebody or, in any case. So thank you. You said you're gonna learn from me. Well, I want to learn from you too. So I would love to. I think we're gonna learn from each other, and I hope your audience is gonna get a lot of value from what we talk about.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. The first thing I would say is people don't talk about money in general. And I know your expertise is more on the relationship side, but why don't people talk about it? Like what is it that they know they need to talk about it and they insist on not talking about it, which is the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. What do you come across with the people that why they don't talk about it?
There is a they are ashamed or embarrassed to talk about money, and they don't know enough about money to talk about money. Generally speaking, even inside, coupled partnerships, people have been dating a lot. I have conversations with singles all the time, and I have conversations with my coupled friends. And things like you don't share bank accounts, or he doesn't know like the full asset portfolio, or we've got
Mhm.
people hiding money under their mattress, or
Right.
they hide their shopping from their partner because it's like there's this fear of being judged. And
Mhm.
and that also, by the way, Marcel, happens to people with money. There are
Right.
people who have money and who have saved that also are afraid to tell the person they're dating or their other half, like, I don't want to tell them how much I have. Like, then they fear like that they're going to really like them because they have money. And
Mhm.
happens a lot with my 7-figure, 8-figure, and higher clients
I
or
I can imagine.
a professional matchmaker, so they're like,
Yeah.
"You know what? I don't wanna meet anybody in my circle because to me,
Mhm.
it always feels like, are they dating me or are they dating my assets?" Right? That's
Right.
the reason why they're not open about talking about money.
Right. Wow, it's interesting. That reminded me of one of the speaking presentations I did. It was a young group of men that I've been working with. It's the number one ranked Long Beach State men's volleyball team. They're actually playing tonight against Penn State. Um, I did a speaking engagement, and one of the first things I started in my speaking about financial wellness and literacy. These kids are all 18 to 22, and I
Okay?
said, everybody, raise your hand if you want to grow up as you get older and stuff. You want to be poor. Raise your hand. Not one person raised their hand. You can imagine, right? You're 18 to
Yeah,
20.
yeah.
Nobody wants to be poor. No one chooses to be poor. So then I said, how many of you want to be at least middle class or wealthy when you as you age, as you get older and stuff? Every single person raised their hand.
Yeah.
That's obvious. Now there's a breakdown between 18 and 22 because everyone always does that. And then life gets in the way, or you're not taking concrete steps and making choices to get there. And then I think that's where it comes from, like you said, where they start feeling ashamed because of poor decisions. Well, like it's really clear to me that if people just needs to open up and they could start at 40 or 50 years old, they'll get into a better spot. Don't worry about being ashamed. Worry about fixing the problem, right?
Right. Well, off camera when we chatted, you had shared with me that you met your wife on Bumble. Is that right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, and no, we're not sponsored by Bumble, but we should be. Hello, Bumble. Gave you a free shout out over there. So
Yeah.
when you met your wife,
Hmm.
let me ask you this. When did you think back to when that was?
Hmm.
When did you start talking about money or getting curious about money? And as a guy who, I don't know your values or not, we're just getting to know each other.
Right.
Was it important for you to know what the financial situation was of the woman? And just let me finish the question, because It depends also, I don't know your financial situation, but when a man there's some men that do really, really well, and they're like, "You know what? I don't really care what her financial situation is because I can take care of that."
Right.
However, if you're with the wrong partner and you don't care about the financial situation, that she could blow all your money too, right?
Right.
So
Right.
there's that. So when did you start talking about money, and what was your attitude about money when as it pertained to the women that you were dating?
Well, I was always the guy that like would always pay for dinner. I'm an old school guy, so I'd always pay for
Yeah,
dinner, even if it was a bad date or whatever. I just always did because that's just the way I am. And if it was a bad date, I just wouldn't go on another date. So it is what it is. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, there's people that say you should go Dutch, whatever. That's just how I am. But in our case, we didn't really talk about it right away. But I knew she had a good job because on our first date, she had told me she's an ICU nurse. So I knew she made good money. Now, she was open and told me she had kids and she was going through a divorce and everything. And so it probably where we started to actually talk about like assets, finance, and future, I would say was probably within 3 to 6 months. Um,
okay,
and then I didn't I had a small house in Westminster, California. I had a good job and stuff, but I wasn't rolling in money. Like
sure.
I was comfortable. But one of the things is that my parents are fairly wealthy, and so I didn't want, because I know some people that knew that my parents had wealth, and so I thought, sometimes a girl might want to think that you're going to get something. It's like, I don't have anything. Like, it's my stuff, not theirs. But so I didn't tell her anything about my family background until about 6 months in, after we said the L word, and
Ah,
so which was fine. We were both comfortable with it, but she was always a really good saver. She was very disciplined, and she made good money. So I'm sitting here going, we just gotta like fix your stuff, and you're gonna be golden. And so we started on that journey, and she was very coachable because she wanted to do good. And when I saw her discipline and knew how she was, she didn't buy frivolous stuff, then I wasn't worried about her. And then she did a thing for me one time, an action that protected me physically. Actually, we were at a concert. It was called Rock the South. It's like Lollapalooza, and this young gal just started yelling at me because I took a seat and it's open seating, and her friends, she goes, "That's for my friends," and I'm like, "Hey, it's open seating. They come back, I'll give
yeah,
it to them."
yeah.
And the girl she was young, the little smartass. And Cindy just gets up. She's 5'9". She's an amateur bodybuilder. So she's like, and she's an Aquarius. If you know the signs, she's tough as nails. And
Okay.
she got in this girl's face and she goes, "Don't you dare talk to my husband like that." And even her daughter was pulling her back. And I'm like, I have never had a girl physically protect me like that. And I go, that was an epiphany right there. I'm telling you. So once I
Well,
did that, the money wasn't as much a concern because she never was frivolous.
right. No, what I get from that conversation and what you discovered is that you're aligned. Like the way that she handled money was certainly in alignment with
Hmm.
your comfortability with money. Now,
Yeah.
had she said, imagine she had said, I mean, you probably wouldn't have married her, I would think. Oh,
Right.
I got this much debt collectors and I love to spend and all her credit cards are racked up and she didn't have savings and
Mhm.
she didn't have any interest in
Right.
saving any money. It was more like, well,
Right.
you got money, you take care of me. One of the top areas for compatibility, a key core compatibility factor in relationships that determine long-term happiness. And this study was taken by Dr. Terry Orbuck,
Hmm.
the love doctor. So I'm going to shout
Yeah.
you out. Hey, Dr. Terry. Um, Finances and agreement on finances is an area when couples when couples who are already together or couples who are newly dating, if they discover that the way that they view money and how they treat money is
Hmm.
not aligned, that's going to either be a choice of you guys are going to constantly be arguing about money,
Yeah.
or you may want to say at that point, hey, I'm not interested in being in a relationship with somebody where we're not going to have any money or there's going to be conflict about money, because that is
Right.
a really important compatibility trait and
Yeah.
something that you should talk about before you and go down the road of serious relationship, which is interesting
Yeah.
because you had stated that it was like 3 to 6 months before you
Uh-huh.
had that conversation.
Right.
And for some, and maybe that's because, and I don't know your situation, but for let's say for a new couple, a young couple that is, I'll quote unquote, biological clock is ticking, or they
Right.
just have this urgency, like, hey, I kind of need to know right away. Like, some of the first questions as a matchmaker is determining in advance, do we have alignment on core values? Because
Mhm.
6 months to discover that, or 3 months to discover that, that, hey, you're not compatible, and you've already
Right.
had intimacy, and there's nothing wrong with yours because you're happily married. But
Mhm.
I would suggest that for people who want to have that life partner and are dating with intention for the life partner, is that they may want to have the conversation much earlier, and not to say what's
Mhm.
in your bank account. It's to have
Oh,
the
yeah.
conversation around, like, what is their idea of what is their view on money. Let,
Mhm.
let me ask you now, Marcel, because I do
Yeah.
know in you working with people, a lot of people
Mhm.
don't know crap about money from what
Yeah.
what you shared.
Yeah, no, and I didn't know either. Like a good 10 years ago, I didn't know any of this stuff. I knew basic stuff, but very little.
Right.
And yeah, no, a lot of people just they don't seem to understand. They can't communicate, but they also don't have the knowledge. So it's like if you don't know anything about it, how can you talk about it? Because
Sure.
then you feel stupid, or you don't want her not to like you, or she doesn't want him not to like him. Um, so yeah,
Well,
it's an interesting dynamic, really.
we're talking about discussing money both in business relationships as well as romantic relationships. Can
Hmm.
you share with me, being that you know now and you've educated yourself on money, if a business owner was thinking, or two people, they're entrepreneurs, or they have an idea, and like friends want to get into business or partners want to get into business, what would you say is important to ask about money as it pertains to that partnership if they're about to go into business together? Are there certain things that you need to know?
Yeah, I would say it's just like a relationship, and I'm glad you brought that up because you need to understand if you have a business guy that's really lazy with his credit cards and throws things on there that he's not supposed to, and you're the one that's like by the book, that's not going to work out. So
Sure.
again, same thing, just like having a partner. It's like I would my wife. We've talked, for example, we'd say if I'm going to buy something big, like a car or something, I would never do it without talking to her first. Even though I can afford to, I have an 835 credit score. Like I could go right now and go buy whatever car I want, and I don't. Now,
Hmm.
if I wanted to, I would talk to her first. And you know
Right.
why? It's because it's respect for her. It has nothing to
Sure.
do with me. I can go buy the car. It's not about me. It's respect for her. In the same way, I wouldn't want her to go down to the dealership and do the same to me, right? Because it's a more out of respect than anything else. But it's
Yeah.
also the time and the money are the two things. So in business, you get a partner that one guy's working all the time, the other guy's playing golf all the time. That doesn't work either.
Hmm.
Same thing in relationships. You can't have the guy or the girl that's always working, the other one's sitting at home. That's pretty hard ask, also, I think.
Right. Well, it's not surprising to me that you were with these young boys, like 18 to 22 or whatever, and think that when we talk about, maybe I'll ask you this question: what is financial literacy? What does that really mean? And when, what's a good way, like, when should somebody be thinking about finances? And is it ever too late to be talking about money?
Well, I don't think it's ever too late because anything you do is going to improve your life, whether it be
Right.
saving, investing, buying a house or a rental property, any asset. It doesn't have to be $1 million asset. It could be something small as like buying an ATM machine and getting commissions off of it, or buying a Coke machine and servicing it once a week and keeping the money. Anything additional to your job is an asset. And um, I lost track on the question. Say that again. Sorry.
Okay, I was saying okay, let's backtrack.
He'll edit that
What
out.
is what is what does it mean? What is financial literacy? People often talk
Oh,
about that.
okay. So financial literacy is basically having the knowledge of how things work on a personal level, not on a business level. I have a business degree, and no one ever taught me anything about financial literacy like personal. So Like, for example, on my website, you go to marceldumurk.com. There are 3 quizzes. There are 10 question quizzes on financial literacy. They have 10 different questions on different subjects, about a mortgage, about a credit card, your credit rating, car insurance, rent. It has different stuff. And they're very basic. And you would be surprised how many people get 2 right out of 10. And I have a basic quiz, an intermediate, and an advanced. And so what it does is, I'm not trying to shame people. I want them to know what they don't know. Because if from there,
Right.
they could go, hey, maybe I need to see how this credit card thing works, because I'm always paying all this interest and this and that. And then when they see it and they learn it, they're like, whoa, I didn't even realize that's how it worked, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they get their they absolutely get their views on money at a young age, right?
Mm-hmm.
That certainly our personalities, some people say we're born with certain personalities based on our
Right.
birthday, right? You know
Right.
that. We have
Yeah.
a mutual
Oh,
friend
yeah.
who
Yeah.
introduced us because, he's a bit of a guru in that sense.
He's
He
really good
knows
at
that
it.
based on your birthday,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm an Aries. My birthday likes to spend money. We like nice things. We like luxurious things. The thing is, I know how to make money too, right?
Right. Right.
So it's one thing where it's different in a couples situation now
Mm-hmm.
because even though, like, here's a difficult conversation too. When you're dating someone, especially now in modern dating,
Mm-hmm.
there is no really 2.0 family. It's no longer husband, wife, 2 kids, dog, white picket fence. Like, the modern family is very, very different. I don't even know what traditional is nowadays, and I'm speaking as a,
Right.
a relationship expert, right?
Uh-huh. Right.
So, a woman could be, or a woman today who meets a man may actually be out earning or making more money than that gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pressure when it comes to money and men, particularly, and I've spoken to a lot of men,
Mm-hmm.
because they're expected to pay for the meal, right? They're expected
Right.
to pay at least the first date.
Right.
Now, in the younger generation, and there are studies that are also, and always, surveys from the dating sites saying, how has dating shifted? How has the money conversation shifted?
Mm-hmm.
One of the shifts is that, again, women are more educated in certain cases and make more money. And so for guys, it's like, what do I do now? Like, should I
Mm-hmm.
her why do I have to pay her? Should I pay when she's making more money than me? And
Right.
also, like, do we put the money into the same account? Is she gonna have her own money to the side? Like, does he
Right.
like weird or different because he's gonna have to ask for money? So those are
Mm-hmm.
things that I think really need to be discussed in terms of, yes, you might make more and you might make less depending whatever, but how are we gonna treat the finances in the house? What part of the money is gonna go towards bills? What part of the money is gonna go towards a rainy day? And what part
Right.
is gonna go, to each of the bank accounts, or will it
Mm-hmm.
be separate? Because I
That's
remember I was
hard.
coaching with one gentleman, and he had a lot of assets. He had
Uh-huh.
multiple homes. He also had his father recently passed away. And
Mm-hmm.
in that, he was dating somebody, and they were kind of almost living together. And he
Mm-hmm.
had wanted to have a prenup, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he recommended to have this prenup, the lady he was dating at the time was like, why do we need a prenup? Like, she did not want to have a prenup. And
Mm-hmm.
so for him, that was a bit of a red flag. And for
Mm-hmm.
her, that was a bit of a red flag. Can you see how
Mm-hmm.
on both sides that
Yeah.
would be like a red flag?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want your money and this and that. And really, and I want to ask you that, do you ever speak to
Yeah.
people about prenups? And what is it that you talk about in prenups? Should someone feel like, oh my God, this is so disrespectful, I don't want a prenup? Do you have views on that?
There's 2 sides to that one, and I think it's kind of individualized, because like Dave Ramsey, he's a financial guru, and he says if you're married, it's all equal. It's just the way it is. So there's 2 ways to look at that. Regarding a prenup, Dave Ramsey is of the belief if you're going to get married, you got to share everything, and that's pretty much how the law works when you get divorced and stuff. But there are concerns, and it could be male or female, with substantial assets, and especially if they're older, because they spent their whole life working to get that stuff, and then to have someone come in that maybe they open their heart and they trust them, and then they get burned. So my feeling is like, if I dated a gal and she had $10 million in assets, I would sign the prenup for her because I'd want to protect her insecurity or her fears. Now,
Right.
I can understand why people wouldn't do that. Male or female, doesn't matter. That's just me. But I have some assets. Granted, I'm married, but we have assets, and I make a good living. So if I was dating someone that was younger than me and had nothing and just had a regular job, I would be a little concerned because now I have assets. I don't want her to marry and then take half the assets that I earned.
Right.
So it's a little tricky. I would say it depends on the person. It depends on the strength of the relationship. How soon are they get married? I think in those cases, you should wait a year or two at least, just to kind of see if there's any red flags that come up. And then if you're comfortable, then you proceed to go to the next level. But I don't like to just say, like Dave Ramsey just says, it's all or nothing. And to one degree, that makes sense. He comes from a Christian background, and it's all or nothing. But I think life is a little more complicated now, and you can't just paint everything into a corner.
Agreed.
All right. Another topic that I wanted to talk about is how money is really a mindset, and how it brings energy to you, good or bad. If you have bad money, it's bad energy, and when you have good, it brings good energy. It brings opportunity and things. And those are things I'm very passionate about because it is something that I've learned. I did not grow up that way. I learned it. And my supportive wife, we both actually grown into the money mindset and using it to build our dreams. So it's one thing I like. Tell me kind of how do you approach that with the matchmaking? And obviously you ask questions, you find out, but how do you pair it, or what are the signs that you look for?
I love that you made the statement about money being energy. And in fact, what you hear all of these buzzwords of law of attraction and law of manifestation. And I do subscribe to that. I do believe that what you focus on, and I don't know who doesn't know The Secret. If you don't know The Secret, watch the movie The Secret, but it really is all about the energy and attraction. So when back in 2020 during the pandemic, I was on this app called Clubhouse. Okay. This was like this app where people were on the phone, like audio only, and people created rooms. And I'm bringing this up because I made a friend. His name is John Lee. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has like 4 million of followers across all social media platforms. And he would run a room called Rich versus Broke Mindset. Okay. And this room, it's a discussion, rich versus broke mindset. And people would do Q&A. And I was one of his panelists and moderators back then. And I participated in that conversation. And so when you talk about energy and mindset, if you have a rich mindset, you're coming from a place of where you have a good relationship with money. You see money as a tool for helping, getting what you want, having, freedom, right? And then there's a lot of people that their view and their energy on money is it's scarce. There's not enough. It's hard to get. It's evil, like they say, more money, more problems. And there are some people that because they come from this, like, if they get money, oh my God, I got to keep this money. It's like, even in a relationship, if you cling on to a relationship and you don't let them out, well, guess what? They're going to leave you and think you're crazy. Right?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you hang on to this money, like you're never going to have it again. Are you gonna stick it under your mattress? And I know that you have skills, or your advisement for people is if you've got money, let your money work for you. Right.
Exactly.
I'm not the financial, stratus and wealth builder, but I do know that you either can save your money in no vehicle at all, in a mattress, in a bank account. How many people, I like to ask you that, how many people just leave their money in a bank account because it's safe, right? Or if you have a great relationship with money and money's going to come in, when $0 are in your account, or that $1 is in your account, and you can still have a positive mindset about money, then money's going to continue to come. And I say this because I've interviewed David Meltzer. I know David Meltzer. He's been popularized for the man who made $100 million and lost $100 million only to make $100 million again. And
Wow.
even maybe not a fan favorite, but even Trump, he's been a billionaire to 100 millionaire to nothing to apparently sleeping on the ground and I'm not praising him as a person.
Right.
I'm just talking about
Right.
the financial, like for him, money
Mhm.
comes and goes, but there's
Mhm.
more money coming in than money going out.
Right.
So when it comes to compatibility, how do I talk about it? You
Right.
generally have an idea of what people's attitudes are towards money when you
Right.
can see what's their lifestyle
Yeah.
and or are they quick to pick up the tab? Do
Mhm.
they no, I don't want that, or maybe a rainy day, like you kind of get an idea if you're
Oh, yeah.
close enough to somebody, right? Of course,
Yeah.
I interview people and I ask those direct questions. What
Mhm.
is your views on money? Are you a spender?
Mhm.
Are you a saver? What kind of vacations do you like to take?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
women will say to me, and men will say to me, women more than men that have a high earning potential will say, "Listen, I want to date a guy that if I want to fly first class, like
Mhm.
I want him to be able to fly first class with me." And you know what's funny about that, Marcel, is that even though I'm a celebrity matchmaker and all my
Right.
clients are high end, I I don't have an issue flying first class, but in my
Mhm.
view about how I want to spend my money, it's
Uh-huh.
not sitting in a first class seat. I would rather
Right.
spend money on the destination and
Right.
spend more money on that destination
Mhm.
than flying to get there. But
Yeah.
and that also has to do with the level of income I'm at. Now, if I'm at a level of
Right.
income where I can fly first class and it makes no difference to my pocketbook, well, guess
Right.
I might fly first class or I might not because again, it's all about choice. I
Right.
do you what do you value? If you value experiences,
Mhm.
you're gonna spend more money on those experiences. If you're
Right.
somebody who likes things, because the
Mhm.
people with bad relationships with money or shopping addictions, they'll buy the things, right?
Right.
I forget whose phrase what it is. More people buy things that they can't afford for to
Right.
impress other people so that
Right.
they can feel better, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's important to have that conversation. But to answer your
Yeah.
question, yes, there's financial tests. I
Mhm.
do a thorough interview. And then
Oh,
also
sweet.
as they date, there's feedback. They'll tell me, women will say, "Oh, he was cheap," or "He was so generous." And
Right.
men say the same thing. "Oh my goodness, she was quite entitled, super entitled," or
Mhm.
"Oh, she offered to pay for, split the bill on the date on
Right.
first date."
Right.
So that'll give you an idea of what somebody's attitude is
Mhm.
towards money. And it's just such an interesting conversation. I got to tell
Oh,
you,
I love
money
this stuff.
is the source of evil or the source of excitement, and
Yeah. Yeah.
entertainment.
If you use it as a tool, it's not evil because you're going to improve your life. And eventually, as you create wealth, you end up sharing it because you can't take it with you. So you may give it
Exactly.
to programs, homeless people, starving people, kids, people that are sick, animals. And I think that's really the power of giving. That's for another whole podcast. But
Yeah.
I think that is important. And I'm not even talking on the religious side because I know a lot of the Christian money stuff talks about giving. I'm just saying to do it as a good person.
Yeah, and there's been times where I remember my eldest daughter, Michaela, she's 25. She works with me in my business, but she came to get me coffee and she came back to the studio and she's like, "Mom," she calls me mommy, even though and I'm like, she's 25, "Mommy, I went to get coffee and the guy paid it forward. Like I actually had I didn't have to pay for my coffee because it was already
Right,
paid for." She goes, "That
right.
was so nice." And you know what? It made me feel great because she felt so amazing. Marcel, what I think it's really important and what I'd love to share with your audience for those who
Mhm,
have, maybe shame around money or they don't want to talk about money, I think they should come to you first of all and get some clarity around their money and get some
mhm.
basic tips to understand their financial situation so that
Yeah,
they're in a better position to discuss it because you can't
mhm.
talk about something you don't know, right? So
Exactly.
build that confidence, take care of
Yep,
your own money situation. The next
right.
thing is it's best, especially if you're going to think if you're dating for intention or you're about to go into business with someone,
Mhm.
have the difficult conversations about money up front. The
Right,
more you avoid it, the more potentially the more time could be wasted because if ultimately you're not aligned, you're backpedaling now and now you're
right.
looking back and going, "Man, I could have saved a lot more time and heartache
Yep,
and headache and resources if I if I had
Mhm.
discussed it up front. So
Right.
remove your fear, have the conversation. And if you can't have that conversation, work
Mhm.
with an expert, a money expert or a dating or relationship expert to help you
Right.
build the confidence in both parts. So you and I are a good match,
Yeah.
in terms of helping people get more comfortable with having those conversations.
Yeah, and it's really not hard, and it's not that painful. People think it's so painful, and then they do it. Like, that was easy. So it's just their own fear, and I just like to tell them, don't be afraid. It's only going to make your life better, and that's what I enjoy
Absolutely.
doing. I know that's what you enjoy doing. So I hope people let us help them. And awesome podcast, a lot of information, and
Thank
really
you.
enjoy your energy too. And yeah, we'll do it again sometime soon. Okay.
I would love that. If you guys want more information about me, you can go to carmeliaray.com. You can find me everywhere. I'm on Instagram and at Carmelia Ray and all the things. Love talking about this and relationships and how to improve your communication. And I think money is a source of pain and pleasure. So if
Yep.
we can help you have better conversations, that would be great. And Marcel, where do
Awesome.
people go to find out more about you?
Anvil Wealth, my website is actually my name, and you see it right there on the screen. It's marceldumerc.com. Very simple. It's a cool name because if you go on the internet, it's the only one, so it's easy to find me.
Me
Uh,
too. Yay, we're both easy to find. All right, thank you
but
so much,
yep.
and I look forward to
Thank you
coming
very
back.
much. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.